to give you a proper introduction. Mr. Adesoji Adeyemi is Nigeria's foremost water engineer. He is an international water engineering consultant with various, external support agencies, including the EU, World Bank, UNICEF, et cetera, et cetera. He's also been a friend of mine for I don't know, a long time. And but I want you to hear his story because the story is very powerful. Soji deals with different communities in Nigeria, and he has a ministry that I want I want everybody to hear today. So Soji, welcome to the show. And first of all, did I give you a proper introduction? Was that sufficient?
Yes, it's good enough.
No, it's good enough. All right, yeah. So tell us before anything else, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are. I know you're married, your wife is here. I know you have kids, but then tell us a little bit about your story, just a title, first summary.
Okay, well, I was born 54 years ago in this very Ibadan that I live. My dad is a civil engineer, and he wanted me so badly to become one. I wanted to do many other things, but I ended up, being a civil engineer like him. And when I eventually decided to be an engineer, I ended up being a water engineer, which was also his specialty. However, over the years, my initial specialty was the real core technical engineering practice, which is what I still do. Designing dams, water supply schemes, treatment plants, and providing water to real big cities. But as time went on, I branched out into the core thing that is really giving plenty of value today. We realized that in Nigeria, for example, there's hardly any water supply scheme, major water supply scheme function in the country. And then I now decided to specialize in water governance. Now, water governance is different in the sense that it's not just about providing water, but it's providing the framework that actually leads to how water can be provided in a sustainable way. So that ensures that you are able to provide water throughout the whole spectrum of the population, that is among the rich, amongst the mid-income people, and amongst the very poor people. So that is, how I really got into providing water into rural communities, to poorer people. And that's where I kind of found my calling, as it were.
Okay, so you graduated school, you got your degree and everything, and then how did you find yourself in doing this water governance thing? Well, because you said I found myself in water governance. How did that happen?
Okay, it happened totally by accident. In 2005, I think, I went for a meeting in Abuja, and they were looking for a specialist water engineer that was also a local engineer to work with an international expert on policy development, water policy development. And I had absolutely no experience. And some people tried to be smart at that time, because what they did was that they wanted me to work with them, but they wanted to collect all the money. But for me, I was just happy that I was going to get into something new. So when I met the international experts, the first thing I told the expert was I had very little knowledge in water governance. And that was the spark, because he took such a very big interest in me and made sure that throughout the 6-month period, we were able to work together, and that's where my experience and my expertise started. And then from then on, I moved on and I started developing the water policies for various states in Nigeria.
Okay, before we get to the water policies, one of the reasons I like to do this interviews is I want people to learn, lessons along the way, And one of the things that you just said was you were honest. You said, I don't know much about this. And then you got some training. The person took interest in you. Was it mentoring, or was it more of a educational academic training?
It was both, a little bit of both. Because the major problem we usually have is, most of us, especially in professional circles, always think we know. And even when we don't know, we are not humble enough to admit that we do not know, because it was a very new sector, not even just in Nigeria, worldwide, people were beginning to realize that it's not just about building big engineering structures, but it's about, finding out how to deliver sustainable water supplies and sanitation services. So it was new.
So in Nigeria,
Yeah.
so now you got into this water governance thing, and in Nigeria, there's still areas today. Okay, well, let me just ask you the question. I don't want to say the answer myself. Let me ask you this question. How sustainable is our system as a nation? Right
okay, let me tell you the background.
Okay.
Now, most of the water supply projects in Nigeria were built in the 60s, pre and immediate post-colonial times, at a time when Nigeria was awash with money, at a time when the general attitude to water was that it was a social service. So what has happened over the years is that with the rapid increase in population, and of course with the limited resources, what has happened is the fact that water has gone into the back burner. Water service provision has gone into the back burner, so that as of today, there's hardly a water supply scheme that is functioning. That's the honest truth. Most of them are functioning less than 20% capacity. So because of the fact that, most governments find it difficult to invest into, it's like pouring water into an open basket. So that's, where the real problem is. So changing the people's mindset, people can spend let's say people can spend about, some people can spend up to $50, $100 a month on their telephone bills. But you would struggle to find anybody who would even give you $10 a month to pay for water. So that's part of the problem. Getting people to also think differently, getting people to also recognize that water is not just a social good, but water is a service provision that has to be paid for.
Okay. When we talk about water, why is water essential? Before we even go into all of the governance part of it, maybe people just don't know why this is essential. Why is it essential for a community to have good quality water? First of all, it's not just any kind of water, because we have communities here, even in the States, that have water that's polluted. And so to have clean water, how is that important or vital to a community?
Well, the thing about it is that one of the advantages that we have in Nigeria and in so many other parts of the world is the fact that we have excellent water resources. So the water is all around us. The water is all around us. You see water in rainfall, you see water in the rivers, you see water everywhere. So the water is all around us. The major problem is treated water is what is very difficult to achieve, because to treat the water, you need to take the water from where it is, put in some chemicals, filter it, and then make it potable, which is enough for us to drink. To make it enough for us to be able to drink. Now, that costs money. So it is that cost that has always been the problem, articulating that cost and making sure that either people or governments or a combination of both and the private sector are able to pay to ensure that that water service is able to be delivered to the community.
So when you say potable water, you mean the water that comes out in our sink? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, the water that comes out in your sink and in your taps and everything. Yes.
Okay, that's potable water. And,
that's potable water.
Okay, so when you're talking, so you're not talking about wells. You're talking about running water. Like you're not talking about building wells in this community.
I'm talking about running water, because even when we build wells in the community, we put in systems to make sure that the water still runs. to be portable, because it's if you have water that is not portable, the population has a high risk of diseases, waterborne diseases, chemicals in the groundwater, and also all kinds of challenges which have long-term effects on people's health.
I remember waterborne diseases when I went to Odogbolu, and I remember
So did
for my
I.
A levels, right? And I remember waterborne disease because we would have those, like, I can't remember what they were, like rings or something, and they would show up on your body, and they would say those are waterborne diseases that you experience. It was just like part of life, And those are some of the things that you work to get rid of in these communities. So my question then to you is, do you see this as a purpose in your life? Do you see, is this meaningful work? Is this like a ministry? I mean, like, what is this to you? It's obviously it's not just a job.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things.
Oh, I think, did we lose you? Can you guys hear me?
What happened?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
I can hear you, Prof.
Oh, okay. So I think it's
we can hear you. It's Ibadan network that is doing.
Okay, here he is again. So you unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Are you back? Yes, I'm back. Even better. Hello? Yes, I'm back now.
Okay, I can see you. Go ahead.
Okay, right. So as I was saying, portable water. Try and repeat the question. Okay, yes, I think I remember.
The question was about, is it what do you find meaning in this work? Is this work? Is this like a calling? Is a purpose? I mean, what is there, or is this just a job? What is it to you?
Okay, let me explain the difference. Now, when you go to the part of the whole thing that has been so meaningful for me is you need to go to communities, in developing countries where you see people who have taken the fact that the lack of water is a way of life. For centuries, for so many years, they've been used to being in those communities, living there with the lack of water. The women and children, they trek, for very, very long distances for them to be able to have access to water supply. They go very, very far for them to have access to water supply. So these are some of the challenges that, we go through, people in the poor communities go through. It's a very big problem. Now, when you bring in the intervention and the water is brought into those communities, you need to see the way those communities transform. It's super amazing because it goes beyond just the job. That a little young girl who would have so much challenges having to go to school, because by the time she goes down to the stream to fetch water, she's totally not capable of even going to school. So by the time you bring water into such communities and you see the little girl being able to go to school, you see her health improve, you see the health of her family improve, you see the overall health of the community change. The community becomes vibrant. You see how, the statement of water is life becomes really very, very meaningful when you watch those things. When you see that happening, so for me, that has been the how can I put it? That has been the catalyst for me, just watching that change, and then going back years later and seeing how those communities grow and develop simply because they have access to potable water is amazing.
Wow. I mean, water bears witness all the time. And actually, I wrote an article a few months ago on water and its impact on mental health. We always had waters. The scientific community always, promoted water's impact on health, on your physical health. Lately, it's actually has a high correlation between water and mental health. That if you consume enough water, it actually helps with the chemical imbalances in brain. It helps with depression. It helps with so many things. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, because this water issue will not only impact just the regular things that we're thinking, your daily needs and stuff and your health needs, but it actually has an impact on mental health. So thank you for the work that you do. So now tell me, when you go into a community, when you enter into a community, who sends you there, first of all? And then what does this work look like?
Okay, yeah, it's very tedious work. One of the saddest things about this is the fact that most state governments and local governments are actually in charge of water service provision to the communities. It's not the responsibility of the federal government. It's actually the states and the local governments. But unfortunately, the state and local governments usually prefer to invest in projects that people can see, like a road project, and things like that. So water never takes the full priority, even though it is very glaring, and even though most communities really, really want water provided to those communities. But however, because we have this top-down approach, we just believe we do things that's best in the community, and we just simply go in there. But most of my interventions in the communities have come from external support agencies, very sadly.
Really?
World Bank projects, European Union projects, UNICEF projects, USAID projects. Those are all the projects that largely deal with water service provision in the communities. However, all these external support agencies can't just come into Nigeria. They come in conjunction with the federal government, mostly through the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, and in some cases through the Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning. So those external agencies come with their own funding mechanism. So the saddest thing about it is that most of the funds that is used to have these interventions actually come from taxpayers outside Nigeria. So the only good thing there is that the agencies always insist that the Nigerian state and local government provide their own counterpart funding, which obviously always ends up being a challenge. And you wonder why, because if you're supposed to provide the service to your people and you have an opportunity where somebody says, hey, you want to provide a service for $1, I'm bringing in 70 cents, you just spend 30 cents. In most cases, even to get the 30 cents, it's a big, big challenge. So most of my work has actually come from work from the external support agencies. However, a few states where you have a very proactive governor who understands the whole idea of water governance and who has already seen the benefits of having a proper institutional framework for water service provision, has actually bought into the program. So states like Lagos, Edo State, and possibly the Federal Capital Territory are actually quite proactive in interventions directly, to the communities without external support funding.
So how do you, how many states have you actually worked with who are like willing and they are on board with this? Did I lose you again?
Well, the interesting thing about it is because I've worked for various.
Okay. I can see you, but okay, go ahead.
Can you see me now?
I can see you. You're good. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Good. So, the interesting thing about it is that because I've worked for various agencies, and the agencies have been in various states, I've ended up participating in all 36 states.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So what I've now tried to do is when the agencies have left, I've tried to get the federal and the state governments and the local governments. Agencies tends to have its own idea in terms of how to do the implementation of their programs. They just want to implement their programs and leave. But at the end of the day, if Nigeria on its own does not have a standard implementation policy towards provision in urban, small town, and rural areas, at the end of the day, everybody just does their own thing and they leave. So part of my work is to ensure that we have a national framework for water service provision. So even though we had the national water policy developed, all the states in which we implemented those policies, we domesticated the national policy rather than creating new policies,
for the
based
state
on what the external support agencies want. Yes.
Well,
so if you look at all the
state.
states where I've developed the policy, about 6 in total, yeah. Each state's policy is like a domestication of the national policy framework.
And you help engineer this, like you are, or did you write it, or is it a team?
For the states, yes, I did the development of the policy in at least 6 of the 36 states in Nigeria.
Wow.
And worked on the policy implementation in about another 4 states.
So did you sell it to them, or is this for free?
Well, I mean, I get paid for my work, at least. I mean,
okay.
The external support agencies actually fund the policy development.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. And so we have 6. So right now we have, that's why in the email I sent today, or the write-up I sent earlier today, I called you a nation builder, because this is how we build nations. If from the populace, and the professionals around us. And so so you've written for 6 states. How about the rest of the 30? Oh, there are 36 states, right? So what about the rest? Ibadan, come on now, what's up? Okay, I think we lost SOJ. For those of us still here, I just want you in the chat box to write for us if you think that what SOJ is doing in terms of water governance is something that should be in all 36 states in Nigeria. Just put it in the chat box and let us know your view about it. So put it in the chat box while we wait for SOJ. Let's put it in the chat box. Let's see your thoughts about water governance so far.
Hello?
SOJ?
Yeah, wait just a minute.
Yeah, I'm asking people to actually type in something. I'm waiting, people. Yeah, I don't see anybody typing yet, though. Yeah, let's see if you can just tell us your views on water governance in all 36 states, please.
Hello, just a minute, P.
It's okay, not SOJ, it's not you. I'm talking to all these people I'm seeing. Should I start mentioning names? Austin, start typing. I don't see you. Bim, 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 Bim. I see you, Busayo, Ebun. Tayo, Catherine, Bolake, Bukola, Buki. We want to know your thoughts. And those of you on YouTube, if you can type in, somebody said water governance ought to be a matter of course for all 36 states. Yes, yes, thank you. And on YouTube, you can type in what your thoughts about water governance that we've heard so far. SOJ, are you there? Yinka, are you there? Okay.
My laptop.
I think it's coming, guys. Just give him a quick second. My question on water governance is I'm still waiting to see your thoughts on it. So those of you still listening to us, please make sure that you do that. How about on YouTube? Do we have? Okay, on YouTube we have some people. Yes, excellent, excellent. Okay, Austin, good. I think all the states have a water policy, such as participating in writing for 6 states. Oh, I see. Is that what you're saying? Okay, well, ask him when he comes back. In the South, though, surrounded by water, the percentage that is drinkable is quite small. So policies needs to guide borehole drilling, replenishing underground water sources, and environment assessment. Wow. Okay, that's serious. If we can get our guest back, he can respond to some of this. We can respond to some of this.
Let's see.
SOJ?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there you are. There you are again. All right, so right now, there was a statement I want you to clarify for us.
Okay.
Like it says, I think all the states have a water policy, and SOJ has participated in writing for 6 states. Is that correct? Or there's still 30 states that don't have water policies? Should I repeat myself?
Virtually all states have water policies now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little bit staticky.
Okay, I wanted to move back to where my wife's laptop is, because that's where the problem is. Her internet has an issue. Mine is fine, but
okay.
So once she's back on, I can then switch.
Okay,
hello.
That's fine. Okay, there she is.
It's on. Actually, it's working now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Like we can hear you.
Okay.
Well,
you can't.
SOJ, let's hear you.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Well, we can hear you clearly though.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you see me? I'm trying to.
We can hear you, we can see you, you're just a bit dark, that's all. But we can hear you and see you.
Just give me a minute. Right.
We'll give you a minute.
Okay, can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you. You're not
okay.
as bright as
you're clear.
You're not as bright as the other time, but you're good.
All right, 1 second.
It's his birthday, so we'll let him do all of this, okay?
I think he wants to get a light source or something to brighten up the room.
It's okay. He just got up. I think he's trying to switch sides. You know, but those are questions. There's another question that's up there that I'm going to read out in a minute. Okay, that's better. Excellent.
Okay, I'm back now.
Okay. So
Right.
did you heard my question? The question was not mine.
I did.
But, I mean, I wanted you to clarify that.
I did. Okay, let me explain to you. Now,
yeah.
Each agency worked in a couple of states.
Mm-hmm.
So what has happened is the fact that I worked in one state with each agency. So what has happened is that all the 36 states have been represented by the works done by all the agencies.
Okay.
So the reflection of the water policy I have done in each one of those agencies is reflective of the policy for those states in that region. For example, hello? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For example, under the Niger Delta Support Program, the water policy was implemented in 6 states. Even though I developed the one for Edo State, I facilitated the development in the other states. Based on the work done in Edo State, because the implementation of water services in the South is totally different from the way it is in the North. So when you look at the policy of all the states in the South, they'll be identical.
Okay, I see. Which is a good thing.
Yes, very, very good thing, yeah.
Okay, so what is South? I'm sorry. Which
South means the Niger Delta states: Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Rivers, Edo. Yes, Cross River. Yes, those are the South states.
And so so there's a question for you before we go on. Somebody said in the South though, the South is surrounded by water that. Yes. The percentage of the drinkable water is small. So policies need to guide borehole drilling, replenishing underground water sources, and environmental assessments.
Yes.
Yes. Do we have those policies in place?
Okay. Yeah. Let me give you an example. For example, in the South area, you have actually large volumes of water, but very little amount of it is drinkable. What we've done is that we've done extensive hydrogeological studies to find out the groundwater potentials in many areas, because there are many areas in the South that actually have large volumes of very clean water in aquifers right down. So what we've done is to map out those aquifers and know them as potential water sources for the future. But before we even start developing those boreholes, because everybody always looks at, oh, there's a need for water and let us just provide the water. It goes beyond that. First of all, we need to know the population today. We need to have an idea of the population maybe in 20, 25 years' time. Then we now need to find out the cost of providing those services, and then also develop a model as to how to recover that cost over 25 years. So while everything is in place, the part of it that is still missing is for people to take ownership of those projects. Because if there's any small problem with those projects, they just assume it's a government project and they will just leave it alone.
Okay. All right, another one says, my question is, what is the level of implementation? What is the level of implementation level of the policies?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, maybe like you should just ask his question. Austin, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, well, let me read it. Let me try to read the whole thing.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Ask your question.
Well, it was a follow-up to the previous question of that all the 36 states have some policy or some kind of policy or the other on water. The question is, if you look at the various parts, the various states and the various regions, what is the level of implementation of those policies? And then one can begin to ask the question, are the policies adequate if they are implemented to some degree? So in your own opinion, what is the level of implementation of the water policies across the states in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much, Austin. The implementation of the policies in the various states are dependent on a couple of factors. One of the major factors is political, because of the changes in regular changes in government. Even when a particular governor wants to implement the policy and is being very, very proactive, the very next governor may just totally put the policy implementation and just keep it on the shelf over the next 4 years. So that's the kind of challenge that we are having right at the moment, the continuity for implementation. Edo State, for example, has been making a lot of progress because the current governor has not only championed the policy, he's also championing the implementation. Now, if he's there for another 4 years, then you can imagine that the policy implementation program will go very, very far. But if he's changed, we don't know what the next governor would have to say. So these are the kind of challenges the policy implementation is going through. But as far as Edo and Lagos states are concerned, because these are the two states where I keep tab on the policy implementation program, both states are actually implementing the policies with varying degrees of success.
Has there been an evaluative process where we actually, you talk about this, places who actually have the implementation? Do we have data? Do we have data that says, okay, this is what is working,
question.
this is what is not working? Because if we're going to replicate something, we need data to be able to replicate it, right?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. That's a very, very interesting question. Yeah, basically, one of the biggest challenges we've had is data has shown that having a major centralized system for a state does not work. That means most states will have a huge water corporation, and then their job under their previous laws were to provide water to everyone in the state. That has failed and failed woefully. So the data has shown, based on the work we've done over the years, especially with external support agencies, is that when a community has a sense of ownership of a particular water supply scheme, they tend to sustain it better, they tend to run it better, they tend to make it work better. So based on that data, the policy framework for most of the states from the national framework has been directed to that kind of data, which the data basically is that water supply to urban areas should be commercialized. That means full cost recovery must be in place. For small towns and for rural areas, what must be in place is the operation and the maintenance for those schemes must be sustained. Now, over the years, for the states that have started running their policies, we have now been collecting data to the success of that policy, so that after 5 years, there can then be a policy review based on the data gathered, based on the data that has been gathered over that period. So that's the kind of process that it's a painfully slow process, but there's really no other way.
But yeah, and that's what we have to do to get, because we always have to think in terms of the future, right? So that we can build systems and not just one-off projects, but systems of water implementation, systems of water, community management. So when I think of your job, I always thought that, and so I would need clarification. When I think of your job, I'm always thinking that you went into like a community, like maybe a village or a town, and then you actually you would gather people around, tell them that water was coming into their place. I always had that vision that was what you did.
But that's what I do. Yeah, but that's exactly what I do.
Oh, really?
That's exactly what I do. Yeah, because you see, what happens is that, as I told you, water governance has different parts. You have the institutional policy development aspect, you have the water engineering aspect, and then you have the community mobilization aspect. Those are the three key aspects. So you need all three to be able to complete the full water governance cycle. The community team, obviously we all go together, but the community team will go in, we meet the king and the chiefs of the village, tell them we're bringing water, we explain the whole system to them, they're very, very excited. I mean, there are cases when I've gone, they've kept me for the night, over a nice bonfire, eating with them, sleeping with them, so that's, the very, very beginning is to build trust. Because in the past, they always believe that the government doesn't have their interests at heart. So you build trust. Then you also let them recognize that the community management program is the fact that whatever we're bringing to them is for them. Then the third thing, which is always the very interesting part, is that we let them know that if it's given to them for free, anything given for free is usually not appreciated. So we always insist that they must have a 5% contribution to whatever facility we are bringing there.
That's good. Absolutely.
So the interesting thing about it is that 5% is not spent on the project. It is spent, it is raised and kept for operation and maintenance. So that when the scheme is completed, they have the seed funds for them to run the scheme. So what we then do is to develop the community management program where the technicians are from the village. Everybody who's going to run the plant is from the village. We train them. We teach them financial management, you know, sources of how they can collect their revenue, the whole gambit. We do everything. And then we register their Water Consumer Association. It is registered right at the state level. So that by the policy has insisted that every single community and village in that state must have its own Water Consumer Association.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And they take pride in it.
Oh yes. I mean, I've been to communities where we've built schemes and after 5 years it's still functioning and they're making money and they're actually selling the water to other communities with water tankers.
Wow, look at that.
It's amazing. They just take ownership of it and boom, the whole thing changes. You know.
But, okay, so wait, if this works with water, okay, which is when water is not like a sexy subject. It's not something that people flock to, you know, it's the water, you know. If you can take it and you can take the success that you are highlighting, I'm sure there's struggles along the way and all of this. Isn't there lessons we can learn here for other sectors of a society? So one of the things I've heard you say is that you liaison with external agencies and they basically were willing to fund, you know, they want to be part of this. And so that's, you liaison with them, you're connected to those. And so can you say, or can you suggest that if you're looking into making a difference in any area in Nigeria, is it your suggestion that it would be beneficial to connect with external agents, external bodies?
Well, it's how can I put it? It's a bit of a mixed bag, and I would explain. The issue there is our greatest problem right now is not the lack of technical capacity, it's not a lack of funds, it's not a lack of the environment to be able to achieve these changes. Our greatest challenge is our behavioral change. Both those of us who implement and the beneficiaries. Because the problem is what the external support agencies are doing are short term, because the external support agencies are not there forever. Exactly. And what they're actually trying to do is to assist us to be able to run our systems, to run our lives, and eventually run our economy, you know, by ourselves. So the real, and that's why it's called external support. The real goal is to develop our own internal development mechanisms. So, you know, that's the real goal, starting right from the community level, you know, and that's why the idea of a whole behavioral change has to take place. Because part of my greatest challenges, not just for water, but even in other sectors, is the fact that everybody tends to want to use it for a personal gain. You know, if you're bringing something to a community, you know, there's someone in that community is thinking about how am I going to maximize the profit from that scheme for myself, rather than for the community. It's the same thing that gets to the local government level, right at the state level, and even right at the federal level. So until we learn to you know, both the implementer and the beneficiary, once we are able to develop this behavioral change, it's not something that may happen in my lifetime, but maybe in the lifetime of my kids.
Wow.
We need to develop that, because unless we do that, we are always going to have, challenges, along the way. So it's not just water. Definitely, it's the same thing with power, the same thing with health, the same thing
In
everywhere.
all areas.
Yes, yes. I mean,
How
part
do
of one of,
you-
yeah,
Okay,
okay.
go ahead. No, I was
For
just going to
example,
say, finish your statement, please.
yeah, I mean, for example, I was invited by the Edo State government to assist in the COVID-19 implementation program. And basically, rather than create a whole new program that would bring additional wealth, to the implementers of that program, I put the state back onto the original, water policy implementation program, in which the COVID-19 implementation is now sitting right into it. So the state does not now need to develop a whole new financial outlay in achieving a whole new set of objectives. The WASH policy implementation objectives, the COVID-19 pandemic is sitting right in it. So that made the state government really very happy when I gave them the template. Of course, some people in the governance will probably not be happy, because they would have expected a new financial line to be created for them to be able to have some access to government funding and things like that. But because which has some certain line items, those line items fit right into the COVID-19 expenditure.
Adesoji, give me a minute.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Can you hear me? Because I have my.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
You are a man of faith, right?
Okay.
You're a man of faith. You have morals. You have all of these things. You have principles that that guide your life. How then do you operate in a system that seems to fight against that?
I was waiting for that question, the dreaded question. Well, yeah, thank you so much for that question. Part of the challenge which I have faced is, as a man of faith, especially when we live in an environment that should be predominantly faith-based. What I'm saying is the fact that the average Nigerian, especially the average Southern Nigerian today, is a born-again Christian. And you would expect that, for all the investment, for all the times we spend in church, for all those things, you would expect that question should not even be an issue, because I should be dealing with my fellow Christians, my fellow, but unfortunately, that's not the situation as it is today. As I said, the issue of the behavioral change is people stop from being, hello, can you hear me? Hello? I don't know. Are you still on? Hello, P-Dots, are you still on?
Well, we can hear you.
Yeah.
At least I can hear you.
All right. Okay, let me continue. Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is the fact that this is what you would expect, but it's not the case. So therefore, the ministry in the marketplace is therefore to be able to tell the fellow Christians you work with every day, let them know that integrity is also part of the calling.
Absolutely.
That integrity is part of the calling. Standing and doing what is right in the marketplace is part of the calling. So these are some of the things that I've had to wrestle against. I can give you an example. I was able to secure a grant for the Edo State government to the tune of over ₦1 billion. And when it was time, I did all the designs, and the contractors were there implementing it. And of course, each contractor would expect that a supervising engineer would have his own cut from the project, and they were prepared. You know, they were already preparing, you know, my court and things like that. And you know, I, you know, told them, I said, look, the governor who owns the project is not interested in taking anything from you. So why did you think I would be interested in, you know, taking anything from you? And they found it extremely baffling. And what happened was, at the end of the day, when we were supposed to construct 65 kilometers of water network, the monies that normally will be given out, which represents in many cases up to 20 to 25% of the project.
Wow.
I insisted that that money was put back into the project. And at the end of the day, about 85 kilometers of network was laid.
Look at that.
So the thing I'm bringing to you there is the fact that just by standing to do what is proper and what is right, an additional 20 kilometers of network is laid. And that brings almost about another 15 to 20,000 people have access to that water that would not have had that access if the normal corruption cycle, you know, takes place. That's a very, very clear evidence, you know, that, you know, this is the way to go. You know, this is the way to go. The success of so many things, so many of our projects lie in us trying our best to stand by integrity. I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, I can tell you I face lots of challenges. But one of the things that has also helped, because I also need to say this, is as a believer, you must learn to trust God for your provision. One of the reasons why a lot of people in this part of the world end up, you know, in the corrupt practices program is the fact that there are many areas of their lives that are lacking. The people that work in the ministry are so poorly paid that they need projects like this to be able to even do the basic things for their lives, to be able to own a house, to be able to send their kids to school. So that's the reason why. So we really need to change the system in such a way. For example, you know, the civil service should be about 1/4 of its size, and those who work in there paid 4 times what they're getting right now. Now, when you are able to achieve that kind of system, the issue of corruption can then be taken as a very, very serious offense. You know, if I'm working with an engineer who is married with 3 children and his salary is 50,000 naira a month, it's not an excuse for corruption. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's working in a system and in an environment that actually encourages it. So
I hear you.
No amount of church service he attends or stuff, you know, will be able to help him out in that situation, because if he's faced with a bribe, he's likely to take that bribe. So that's the kind of you know, system that we're working in right now. So I mean, on my projects, I'm relatively very well paid. I've been well provided for. So there is the issue and the temptations, you know, are lower. I don't know how to describe this, but that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. So it's easier for me to sit down and do my work, you know, and do it, you know, diligently. And even in cases where I have to do it for free, because I know that, you know, my needs have already been supplied and my needs have already been met, it's easier for me to just do it. So these are the kind of things that have helped me through my work in this environment.
Yeah, but SOJ, you didn't get to, you weren't always been well paid. I mean, there was a time you just graduated your master's degree and you just started in this field, right? So did your integrity then, did it change over, did it kind of solidify and grow over time?
No.
Or were you always this way? Okay,
let me explain it this way. Okay, when I was much younger, I had fewer needs. I had fewer, how can I put it? There was a hope. That's the point I'm trying to make. There was a hope that as long as I stood for God and I was diligent in my work, there was a hope that things were going to get better. Now, what I'm saying is that in the civil service, the civil service is so structured that once you are right in the civil service, you can actually see your end from the beginning. Let me give you an example. If you enter the civil service, the best you can be is a permanent secretary. right?
Mm.
Now, federal permanent secretaries are relatively well paid, and those who are in the healthcare systems too are also relatively well paid. But the general civil service, for example, in Edo State, as a permanent secretary, you get $1,000 a month. No, what am I saying? $500 a month. Yeah, that's what you get paid as a permanent secretary. That's what you get paid. Now, my point is those who are entering the civil service are the ones that have the greatest challenge in protection of integrity. And they are actually the ones that are in charge of the multi-billion naira projects.
I see.
You understand the problem? That is where the real disconnect is.
So there's all this money. So you got like $1 billion. I only have like a few minutes. Oh, I think we have 1 minute left. We have like $1 billion. We have like $1 billion project coming in, and then you're getting paid $500 a month.
Exactly. Yeah. That is where the real issue is. So then I guess what the message then, what is the message then? What are you saying to people? What are you saying about integrity to people? The message which I'm saying with the issue of integrity to people is stand true to your God in spite of it. Okay. If you're going to work in the civil service and you know you're going to be poorly paid and you want to stand by integrity, then you develop other sources of income and trust God for them. Excellent. That's the thing. Because even for me, even till today, I know without a doubt that anything I'm going to do, I'll have to work for it. And so although you work with government, you also have your own. I have my own private practice. Yes. I have my own business. So what you're saying is multiple sources of income. If you're in the civil service, if you're a civil servant, try to do something else so that you're not tempted all the time to. Absolutely. You can live in your integrity. Yeah, absolutely. So your journey, thank you for sharing this with us today. It's my pleasure. One of the things that we want people to take away is that you can be successful in Nigeria and still hold on to your own integrity and your own compassion and your own hard work and all of the good things that makes us a nation. Because here's a man who is doing it, and we want to salute you. Thank you for what you do. We congratulate you and happy birthday. Thank you very much. God has shown me that it is possible. I left the UK to come to Nigeria to do it as a command, and looking back 25 years, I'm very grateful for that. But before I sign off, I also want to thank my wife, because without someone like her by my side, this journey would have been a lot harder. Oh yeah, she's probably not online, but they can pass the message to her. Basically, she was with us a minute ago. Yes, I know. Basically, with people like her who pray for you, who stand by you, and even when you're under pressure, to shake in your integrity, she still tells you, no, you've got to stand. That's the kind of support structure. That's a powerful thing right there. See, we could do a whole hour on that. A supportive spouse. Even so that keeps you, so you uphold each other, and she tells you, no, don't do that. You can't do that. Let's pray about that. That's wonderful. Yes. That's wonderful. All right, everyone. Do we have any more questions? I think that you can unmute yourself. Let's celebrate Adesoji. I call him Adesoji. You can unmute yourself, or you can type in something on the chat.
Yeah. We celebrate you.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did. I did hear that.
So celebrate you. So thank you so much.
Happy birthday, Bob Daddy. We celebrate you.
Thank you, Busayo. Thank you.
All right. And those of you on YouTube, thank you for joining us today. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks, Soji.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.